Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, November 6, 2023 meeting of the Rhinebeck Planning Board. I saw Michael come in, Delise is ill, and Craig is running late, but we have a quorum, so we'll begin the meeting. There is one small addition to add to the agenda, which we'll pick up later in the meeting, and that is just making a typographical correction on the ODA that we previously approved. There was a date change we have to make. That is the only deviation from the agenda as it was posted. You've all received the meeting notes from Jim. Any comments, questions? Could I have a motion to accept them?
So, second, Sean.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Thank you very much. You have received in draft form the minutes of the October 2nd and the October 16 minutes. Does anyone have any corrections or additions they'd like to make to either of those sets of minutes?
I will accept them.
Both at the same time?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion to accept both sets of minutes. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. I have no correspondence or announcements. Is there anything from anyone else? Okay, so we'll open the new application portion of this evening's meeting and start with Mike's Tree Service, Route 9, site plan review, use of front office as a medical office.
Is this the appropriate place to stand?
Sure.
Good evening, Seth Stickle with Mark Perminsky, PE LSPC, here this evening to represent MRD Tree Services, Inc., the owner and applicant of a 0.995 acre parcel on the west side of Route 9 in the town of Rhinebeck. The parcel is located in the Community Business South Zoning District. In 2021, we came before this board for a site plan approval as well as a variance application. The site plan was for a business service for forestry, which is Mike's Tree Service, as well as a business or professional office space. The approval required a variance for a front yard setback, so an area variance. We obtained that approval. This board approved the site plan. We also obtained the minor commercial curb cut from the New York State DOT, as well as the approval from the Dutchess County Department of Health for water supply and wastewater disposal, private, both on-site. We're here this evening to discuss a site plan amendment for the application. The owner and applicant is seeking the amended site plan approval for the same development of a commercial building for the purposes of the same business service, forestry, which will remain unchanged, and a medical office for use as a chiropractor. That is the subject of the application tonight, the change in the forestry, like I had mentioned, will remain the same. That space will be used as a base of operations and providing business support services for the forestry operations. This use remains completely unchanged, and as a result, we also do not need to have any site plan changes. The proposed use as a medical office is for a chiropractic's office. That chiropractic's office will be on-site. There are a total of 5 employees in the forestry service, which is unchanged. The medical office will support 1 full-time chiropractor and between 10 and 12 clients per day. The change in the use is what requires this meeting. We had, like I had mentioned, we had previously gotten Dutchess County Department of Health water supply and sanitary disposal approval for this. The project will take the balance of what was the original allocation for that load rating and apply it to the chiropractic's office. That's what kind of constitutes the single chiropractor and 10 to 12 clients per day, so that we can maintain that. We have had discussions with the Department of Health about that load rating change, and they have given us a conceptual approval. It also will require, because of the change to the medical use, a water supply treatment system that has a public water supply treatment, which is really just disinfection at the end of the treatment system. That's really what would be added. We've looked at both the building. The building can support the additional infrastructure that's necessary for that. And with minor changes to the floor plan, can also support the new use as a chiropractic's office. There's no change to all of what happens for Mike's Tree Service, the forestry operations. All of that is located in the rear of the property, including the parking for any of the trucks or any of the vehicles or employees. The main portion of the front of the lot will have its own access through here for the chiropractic's office and dedicated 7 spaces, 6 regular spaces and 1 handicap for that. There is no proposed change to the sign, which was previously approved, which is a maximum height of 6 feet mounted, 12 square feet, with 2/3 allocated to Mike's Tree Service and 1/3 allocated to the chiropractic's office. We're here this evening in hopes that this board will find our application complete and move towards scheduling a public hearing.
Jim?
Okay, just a couple of comments and questions. When we originally, the board did originally review it and permitted, I think, it was permitted under business service, not listed elsewhere, so it was not a specific use per se in the use table. I do think it's somewhat fair to say, I think the board thought that the use itself would be something that would maybe a slightly lower volume or different type of use, like an office versus a doctor's office. But again, the use itself is permitted because it was under the business service, not listed elsewhere. So I just put that up. I just going to put that out there because I think we're going to have, just a discussion about, concerns related to the parking and people coming in and out of the building, which we did have in the original review. But specifically, the proposed sign that you have out there, the structure itself, and the sign from Mike's was definitely approved, but I do believe you're going to have to come back to the zoning administrator to get the sign for this use approved, the actual sign itself. It's like I say, the structure is okay, Mike's is fine, but I think the sign itself will have to come back in to the ZA, and that moves like they refer back to the planning board. So you could do that, if you have the design sooner rather than later, to kind of get those done. But the sign itself will need to be looked at and make sure it's consistent with the sign code. I think the number of parking spaces is okay and consistent with what's required for the use. And the only other comment that I had, and Seth noted, they've got discussions with the county for septic and water supply. Just based on the way things have gone in the past, and I'm actually going to recommend this for 1 or 2 others tonight, we may want to consider scheduling this, certainly after, discussion with you, scheduling for 2 months out instead of 1, because we almost never get county health department documents. It's just a consideration. And so maybe you can provide some insight into where you think it stands. Typically when you're 1 month out, it almost never happens. But that's all I have, really, just that I think the sign needs to come back.
Now we'll open it up to planning board members for any questions or comments.
So one question. 2 businesses in a single handicap spot. Are people visiting? I guess the question, Seth, is are people visiting the location for Mike's? Like, is the general public ever showing up there to see Mike's?
No, this is a base of operations for the business. So it is just storage of vehicles and daily operations and support staff to run that business. That's included in the 5 employees.
Okay. Thank you.
So Mike would never entertain a customer coming in?
I do not believe that that's the intention here. However, Mike is here this evening and he could certainly answer that in better detail, but I'm not sure that that's how the business operates, but certainly look for some clarification from Mike.
Yeah, we don't have customers that stop by really just we do the work, build them, I go out to do the estimates in the field, so there's really no need for me to meet with customers on site because I'm looking at their trees and that's what's most important.
And your employees will all, obviously you have a variety of employees, some that work on your equipment, do you have office employees as well?
I have one office person and then just employees that work in the field, yeah, so they're not there.
And the one office employee is located on the second floor?
And then the other question I had is just a curiosity of just, the project is still under construction, it's still moving along. Is there any consideration of knowing when that's going to be done before we approve new premises implementation? I don't know if that's, no.
It doesn't change the site plan, so
Okay.
related back to your question about parking for employees, when you reviewed the original plan, we reviewed it for a holistic idea of what would happen on the site for two potential uses. That's why we looked at, for this
Right.
one. We looked at this one for the number of parking spaces that are available to access, just the office up front. There are spaces in the back for employee parking. There are 4 here, another 2 up here, and then these, I think, trucks and things like that. So we did look at kind of the whole picture of the site. Since we're not changing the building footprint, not changing parking, everything seems to be code. I don't think there's a reason we have to be concerned about that unless you have a specific concern. But that's fine. That's just something.
Jim, you mentioned some concern about entry and exit traffic. What issues do you see there?
Well, they were raised last time we talked about the project, just that, the 7 spaces are over here, and the entryway to come in will require people to come across, essentially the entry driveway into the building. We had discussed this, previously when it was reviewed, and that would be a concern, or was a potential concern, I guess, by the board, but we didn't end up approving it. But it was just a discussion about, where, we're coming in from the parking spot into the door. Like, do the trucks typically go out early in the morning and back at one time a day?
Start at 7, we're out the door by 7:30, we don't come back until 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
There's not a lot of in and out.
What would the hours of operation for the chiropractic office be?
It's usually 8 or 9 in the morning whenever I have patients scheduled until about 5 at night.
Well, I was trying to make sure that the hours of operation for the vehicles, large trucks coming in and out, perhaps don't overlap
Right.
with the
They're
schedule.
out before I start. They're out before I start.
And they're back before you finish, or you
Correct.
finish first?
They're back before I finish.
So there is a period of overlap in the afternoon when you have your patients, I assume your patients, coming in and out at the same time that the tree vehicles are going in and out.
Yes.
Just in, yeah.
I believe the side of the building is a sidewalk, which I think was referenced as a safe path, I think, during.
Yeah, there's a sidewalk.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, the way that it was designed was so that people could park immediately, come across to the edge of the building where there is a striped area that then goes to an elevated sidewalk into the front.
Is there sufficient space in the future to bring in another chiropractor, which would result in more patients coming in and out?
That's not the intention now.
Well, I'm asking, I'm asking.
The load rating for the sanitary disposal really drives some of this. So there's an allocation that goes to Mike's Tree Service. Mike's Tree Service has 5 employees. We do have a shower facility in there in case there's any need for that. And so those are 5 employees at 20 gallons a day. That's 100 gallons. We were approved for 175 gallons a day previously. We intend to keep to that because the site conditions only allow for a certain size of an area for sanitary disposal. That 75 gallons a day has been allocated for one chiropractor at 15 gallons a day, leaving a balance of 60. In discussions with the health department, the load rating for a client that's coming to visit would be 5 gallons per person. That's where we come to a maximum of 12 for the balance of 60. So the site is limiting in its potential for expansion. I think that might answer your question.
Well, there were 2, thank you for that information. The other was you doubled the number of chiropractors and even increased by a certain percentage the number of patients, clients coming in, you would also be requiring more parking. So there's 2 aspects to look at that. That's why I was asking if that was, is that foreseeable? Is that something that you...
It's not in the foreseeable future. It's not intended right now, no.
just to get into the parking just a little bit. We're talking about the permanent space one permanent space would be occupied by the chiropractor. You have, let's say, a maximum of 12 clients coming in over an 8-hour period. That's about 1.25 people per hour. We'll round that to 2. That would mean we would need 2 additional spaces for the clients at that time. So let's say in a peak scenario, if you had some double up on that, you would still have adequate parking at that time. And also, just to speak about the crossover potential between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m., when Mike's Tree Service vehicles may be arriving back to the site, and there may still be 1 or 2 more chiropractic clients, that interaction is really limited to the 1 or 2 evening clients that are booked at that time slot and Mike's Tree Service. So the interaction there is 1 or 2 people with the trucks coming and leaving, coming back.
It's not an apples-to-apples comparison by any means, but I almost kind of equate it to the same as when you see parking in a shopping center, cars right in front of the stores, and the parking on the other side of it, which I've always kind of on my mind, that's the way to do it. People are watching those vehicles, hopefully we'll be doing the same here, because you have a similar situation here where the parking is on the other side where the traffic is going in and out. But not in any way an apples-to-apples comparison.
Anyone else from the planning board?
Does this require another site visit?
It requires processing by us, it requires a review. I think it might be worthwhile to have a set of eyes go up and look at it, and just reassure ourselves that we are comfortable with what's there. Does that make sense to folks?
Just really quick, it's the chiropractic office is ADA accessible, right? The ramps, the way you set up the sidewalks and everything is accessible.
It is. Directly across from the handicap space is a ramp that's 10 feet at the 5% to the front door.
Anyone else? All right, Jim, I think you have a procedural resolution.
Okay, resolution for the, procedural resolution for the board's consideration tonight for an application by Mike's Tree Service for site plan amendment under Town Code Chapter 125 to utilize the existing unutilized space as a medical office chiropractor at 6765 Route 9. Accepting the application documents is adequate for further review. Classifying the action as type 2 under secret, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Scheduling a public hearing for December 4th. We will refer this to the CAB, County Planning Department, because it is site plan, and we need 2 planning board members to conduct a site visit.
I'll go.
If you want to say that.
I'll join it.
Okay.
That was Ed and Sean, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but Jim, you mentioned 2 months earlier that I'm just bearing in mind.
That's a good point. Yeah, well, it's up to you.
We don't have the calendar out yet, though.
What's that?
We don't have the calendar done yet for 2024. That'll be the next week.
That's right, you only have 1 in December.
There's 2 in December, so you can put it to the second one in December, but you can't have to do it like that.
And what's the concern there, to move it to, out to 2 months?
Turnaround
Would be
time with the health department.
to get health department approval? Is there any potential for conditional?
No?
I mean, it's up to what we can do it, I guess because we don't have a January date, maybe we don't do 2 months and keep it at the 1 this time, but then it's stay before, so. So we'll stick with December 4th.
Okay. All right, we have a draft procedural resolution, we have a motion to accept it.
So move, Sean.
Thanks, Sean, second. Second. Ed, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carried.
Okay, see you in December.
Okay. Next up this evening will be the applications for the Zito and Allison Morgan, 310 Casco Drive for site plan review and wetland permit for
Hello everyone, my name is Jaime Donate. I am an architect. I am working with Allison Reagan and Kobe Cito, who's here. They live in Sebasco Village, and we're here to present this project for an addition to a single-family residence. So thank you for being here and looking into our project. I thought I would start with describing the site characteristics. There is an existing house that was built in 1979, and it's pretty much in the center of the site. It's 1 3/4 stories, and it's a half-acre lot. We are adjacent to the wetlands for Sebasco Lake, so not Sebasco Lake, but the wetlands. And so the existing residence is here, Sebasco Lake Road is here, the driveway, you see it right here. We're looking to do an addition in this area. The footprint of the house right now is roughly 1,200 square feet, and that's this portion. And we're looking to add another 730. And it's, we still are well under the allowable, maximum allowable coverage. The main issue we have, there is nowhere here, is that we are within the 100-foot wetland buffer. And you can see here, it may be a little blurry, but this line is the line of the wetlands that were flagged in August. And the 100-foot buffer basically cuts right across our site. If you zoom out a bit, you can see that once you overlay that with the building, zoning setbacks, which is, this line, the only portion that is clear to build is right here. Is also pretty far from the house. We feel that this addition is pretty modest. It is a place that makes sense for the house, but also from the site, it is, it is within the buffer, but it is away from, just trying to get away from the lake, which is in this direction. And the site right now, it's this area of the site is actually clear. It's not clear. There's grass, but there's no trees, so there's no removal of vegetation or any trees. And to us, it seems like a very appropriate place. We're looking to add a number of bathrooms, laundry room, a family room. So it's a growing family. It's really making a relatively small house. It's pretty much a lakeside cottage into a residence. Yeah, this is a good one. This is the profile of the existing house, the footprint of the house is an existing deck, and there's a kitchen right now. There is a bathroom and a bedroom, all crammed in here, and a living family room. This is there to a second floor that has another bedroom. We're looking to create this will be the addition. We're looking to create a new entrance right now because there's no entrance to enter through the kitchen. Looking to create an entryway, and then a number of bathrooms. Move a bedroom that right now is here, move it to that side, and create a family room. This is a growing family. They have 3 children, and there is only one family space, social space, and the other space that we're adding is a laundry room. The site is pretty much flat, or around the building is flat. We're not looking to disturb that. We're looking to maintain the topography. And basically, we're building a single-story addition. There will be a crawl space below. We're not looking to excavate a full basement. Trying to be as prudent as we can, modest, given the constraints. And again, it will be single story. So in terms of the massing of the house is pretty minimal. the zoning, and no, there's not zoning, but all the zoning regulations, we're well under on the lot coverage, building coverage, even the clearing, we're below the maximum allowable. We think we're being pretty good neighbors. Alison called me about this property about a year ago. The property was in, I would say, had some slight neglect. They've been working pretty hard on cleaning it up. I think that's part of what this is also doing is improving the neighborhood. These are some elevations of the house, the existing house. This is a very simple board and matting cottage. We're really not touching it other than putting some new windows in this facade as a kitchen. But this portion here in gray, that's the elevation. So the house is kind of elevated. The finished floor of the first floor is about 3 feet up from grade, but we're maintaining that. And we're not touching any of these decks that are in the back that are actually relatively close to the lake for working on the opposite side. Maybe the next. This is a building section, just showing this is the existing grade. This is on one side and this is on the other side. It's pretty much flat. That's the existing finished floor. We're maintaining that. And this is our addition. This is the existing house in the back. Crawl space here to run mechanical equipment. So what the footings give us to rebuild the frost lines, and we're using that space just for mechanical spaces. But we're digging as little as we need to.
Just had a couple of comments. As you noted, the proposal includes an addition which is complete within the wetland buffer, but as you can see, just about the entire building envelope is in the wetland buffer except that corner. Just wanted to point that out, make sure everyone's aware. We usually have pretty significant discussions about wetland buffer. This is an interesting case. I did want to ask about the proposal for the fuel tanks. We're going to put the fuel tanks and the AC on the side of the addition here. It is in the wetland buffer. Just curious what fuel, is it propane? And is there any potential just to move them further toward the edge of the wetland buffer versus?
That's a good point. Right now they're here. And that would allow you to reuse the same ones. It's a strategy for minimizing cost. But we could entertain, looking into moving them away, I guess, from the shore. Closer to the property line and maybe burying them or something like that.
What fuel? Is it
It's propane.
It's propane?
Yeah.
It's all right.
And the AC could also be, the AC can be
Right,
extended.
there's AC.
I think it was a practical thing right now. They're here. We thought they could just be moved, but they could be
It's
relocated.
not in stone yet, but maybe use pencil. But we were talking about potentially getting rid of them and doing like heat pumps instead. So that could be a possibility.
If you wanted to do that, you should really do that now as part of the application versus later and potentially have to come back in. Actually, in the wetland buffer, you would have to come back in. So if you want to do that, I would seriously consider doing that and making that change. That's what you want to consider. But if the tanks are going to remain, I was just going to ask if there's any way they can be moved as far, away toward the edge of the wetland buffer as possible, just because it seems to be good practice to try and get as far away from the wetlands. The driveway, I noticed you're increasing the area of the driveway right now. I think this is the edge of the driveway.
That's right.
coming in,
Yeah.
And it's going to increase out here. So we are increasing the amount of disturbance within the wetland buffer for the driveway here. I did not see a label as to what it was proposed to be. I think this is all gravel. I assume this is going to be gravel as well.
That's it.
Label,
Yeah,
so
expanded. Yeah, right now it's a very awkward shape. There's almost no room to turn around. That's why enlarged, but the idea is to expand it, not pave it or anything like that.
So I want to point out that it is a large area being disturbed in the buffer from the board, but also I'd like, since this label should say gravel as well, so it's clear that the expansion area would be gravel. That there's a big difference between talking about gravel and pavement, particularly in the wetland buffer. I didn't see details on the August 2023 wetland delineation, like a plan showing the flags. Was there one? Did I miss it? Was it not
There
submitted?
is one, I would then submit it yeah, from the, yeah, sure.
Yeah, if that wasn't, we should have that for the file, just so that it shows.
Did you see the survey? There was a survey.
That's on the survey sheet? Oh, here they are. No, they're there, the WLF. Is this the wetland flags here?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
There's another one that has this one done by the principal flag, and this is like a sketch, it's like a field sketch. You can provide that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember seeing, I might have missed it, but let's just make sure they're in the application
Sure.
file. And then the last one is typically, we would see stormwater management type plans for something like this, where the silt fence is going to go and things like that, because you are in the wetland buffer. So any silt fencing and things should kind of be shown where that's going to be located, so that the building department knows where that should be when they go out to take a look, things like that. Are you disturbing more than an acre? I don't think so.
No, it's, this whole site is half an acre.
Oh, okay, that's good.
So it's well.
Any comments, questions?
Any board members? Okay. Jim, you want to draft procedural resolution?
For the board's consideration tonight, procedural resolution for Cogazito Nelson Regan for site plan approval on wetlands permit under Town Code Chapter 125 and Chapter 120 for construction of an addition of 3/10 of Pasco Lake within the NNO zoning district. Accepting the application supporting documents is adequate for further review by the planning board. Classifying the action as type 2 under seeker, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. We'll schedule the public hearing on this for December 4th. We will send this to the CAB for referral. We'll send it to Dutchess County Planning for referral, and we need 2 planning board members to do a second.
Chairman Michael. All right, may I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Sean. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Michael. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you. So either Sharon or Michael will be in touch with you to schedule an appropriate time.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Sharon and Michael, when you set up your GPS, it's Lake Road, not Drive. Okay. I had a hard time finding it, I just going first. Thank you.
The new application for this evening is Darren Prinz and Kelly Swiss, Acton Hook Road, site plan review for the construction of a single-family dwelling, covered terrace and in-ground pool and fence. Oh, okay. Sorry. I was looking at Levi. Apologize. Would you like to tell us what you'd like to do?
Yeah, my name is Zach Hall, representing KDA, the architecture firm. Christina wanted to be here tonight, but she's volunteering and out of Redwood finding work. So what we have here is a single-family residence on a over 12-acre parcel. The residence is a little over 3,000 square feet. We have plans of putting a pool and a pergola, which is kind of like the pinker shade, below the red. Exactly. And new septic system, well, these things. We received health department approval when our clients bought the lot. It came with health department approval. So we are representing the same absorption field, leach field, that was approved by the DOH when the subdivision was approved. Two main, it's a standard single family house with attached garage. the main concerns that we have, I just want to off the bat get to is, we are essentially, if you go a little bit to the left, and down, I believe, we have a little diagram of the site. Maybe just zoom out a little bit. Excuse me, that's the next page. 2.0, please. Thank you. And then left, just above the site. So during our workshop, we brought this to your attention, and so that's kind of the first thing that we want to just check off the box. We haven't performed an archaeological survey yet. It costs in the order of thousands, and there was one done just adjacent to us. And so I guess that's our first question is the adjacency of the previously approved development and archaeological study relevant to our site? And I think that there was a discussion, maybe a discussion with the local historian per our workshop. So that's number one. That's I guess my first question is this going to be something that we need to execute before moving forward with the board? The second thing is the subdivision had a driveway approved, a shared driveway. And of course we know that towns like to have, as few openings on the street as possible, right? So while we have an approved, an approved entrance into the site, the problem is we have a federal wetland right here, and I'm concerned that we would be on the shore of that wetland, which is the bank of the wetland, which is our federal guidelines, right? We don't have a buffer requirement, but we do have non-disturbance kind of requirement there. So given that concern, we're proposing a new driveway off of Packard Hook Road. So frankly, there'd be a small change off of the existing approved cul-de-sac. However, we have understanding. I lack the details, but I believe that there is precedent from one of the neighbors actually not using this cul-de-sac and having their own road. I don't know if there's a shared memory or history in the room, but I can get into that. I can dig it up a little bit more. So those are my main two. I think those are my snafus here in presenting the project. The rest of it I feel like is pretty straightforward. If you guys have anything other than that,
Well, I'll let Jim run through his comments, and then we'll have comments and questions from the planning board members.
So I have a number of comments, maybe a couple of questions as well. I do think you have gone through and provided us with a lot of the detail we asked for since the pre-con meetings. We have a lot of details shown on the plans now, which is great. Based on my history of working with the planning board and the historic nature of this being the Manson-Henning Drive area, I do believe that the Phase 1A will be requested, but that's obviously up to the planning board. I have to imagine that we've never accepted an adjacent Phase 1A or B for the site itself. That's not up to me, that's up to the board. And certainly we get HAPAC input as well on this, given the history of the area. A couple of the details, the topography lines I noted didn't actually have numbers on them showing what the actual numbers are. We need those so we can calculate slope, and that will actually come into play in one of my other comments in a minute. I did have a question about the proposed pool fence that you had shown here, and why it's, I guess it's so large, but if this is the pool, and this is the fence you have here, how much clearing is going to be needed, why is it so big? And it is going kind of up, right up against the edge of the SDS, which kind of just caught my eye. So I don't know if you have anything we can kind of explain about what's going on.
Absolutely. It's our typical design decision. We encourage our clients to spend a little more and to extend their fence out past the pool area so it doesn't look like as much as a corral. So it's really an aesthetic decision that we're pushing it. I mean, it's a classic KDA, right? This is what we do. We'll push the fence right out from the view so that you don't feel like you're trapped. When it comes to the proximity to the leach field, understood. It also looks like it's dissecting my my septic tank. So we could definitely push that in.
Is that whole area need to be clear? Are there trees in there?
There are trees.
Both sites essentially.
Right. We hate clearing. I just built a 500 square foot cabin in the middle of a pine forest using wood tiles. So we're not into clearing the trees. However, we would direct where the posts are going to avoid trees so that my horizontals would be slipping past them.
Yeah, I guess my question is more, are you planning on taking down trees and putting in a big lawn to the fence there? That's kind of what I envisioned.
No.
And
So
then,
do we need to see existing trees as part of the plan?
well, that ties into my next comment is that you do have a note on the plan stating that all trees 6-inch DBH or higher should be tagged for evaluation prior to removal. But we actually need those to be identified as part of this planning process. If you are removing trees over 6-inch DBH, they have to be shown on the plans. So we need a tree survey done. Typically, we requested to require a tree survey to be done for any trees, not necessarily the whole site, but certain areas of impact. And any trees that are over 6-inch DBH need to be identified with their size and their type, so that we know what's coming down. If it's dead, that's one thing. If it's live, that's something else we usually have a discussion.
Understood. Follow-up question. If there were, so obviously providing the tree survey, once received, what are you reviewing?
Looking to see if you're taking down significantly large trees. We've had conversations, and we'll have one tonight about the removal of 2 trees that I think are 30 inches in diameter. Those are the kinds of things we talked about and want to discuss why they have to come down and ensure that that's actually necessary.
Would it be possible to narrow down the tree survey to trees around 30-inch diameter? Instead, because there's a lot of trees on the site, I mean 6 to 30
Well,
is
he's
like,
only talking about the areas that would be impacted by your development,
okay.
not all the trees on the site.
I don't have the code in front of me, but I believe the code requires 6-inch DBH to be identified.
Understood, this is just like a, I'm just trying to understand why, because it's gonna cost my client, obviously, right? I mean, we're at least 5 for the archaeological, and then 5K, right? And then a tree survey, right? We're talking about in the order of 2,000 to 3,000 is what I would imagine that's going to cost. So we're at 8,000 for. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking.
You're at $8,000 for planning assessments that are required by code and required by the planning board, yes.
Understood, Jim. Okay.
So I just want to note that, so it would be for any areas of disturbance to identify those large trees. So that includes the driveway, the house, and anything else that would be potentially taken down, including the SDS. So
Buffer on the disturbance.
what's that?
Buffer on the disturbance, Jim. Like, I'm not gonna like hold tight to it, right? I'm coming off like 5-10 feet. I got to be clear because the surveyor charges me per square foot.
Anything that's going to come down. So if there's a tree that's 6 inches off the edge of where the driveway is proposed, but it has to come down because the roots are in the way of the tree of the driveway going in, that tree has to be identified as one that would come down.
Do I need to hire an arborist to identify whether that tree needs to come down or not?
That's up to you.
Okay.
I mean, if it needs to come down for engineering purposes, if it's coming down, it's coming down. If that's the proposal.
So I should assume that it's going to come down rather than whether we're going to save it or not, right?
I can't make that call. You have to make that call.
I'm just trying to meet the board's requirements, Jim, that's all. Okay.
Any tree over 6 dBH that has to come down in order to do what's on the plans has to be identified.
And what height is the diameter of your roof?
The dBH is diameter of breast height,
Got it. Thank you.
roughly. Yeah.
Understood.
You are showing wetlands on the property, and both appear to be within, what you're proposing to do on the site does appear to potentially be within 100 feet of those wetlands. The wetland buffer, it goes out, extends 100 feet from the wetlands themselves.
So to be clear, the state-regulated wetland check zone is from the wetland across Acrohook. And that, what we have on screen is a federal wetland.
Those are the ones we look at. The code requires reviewing and we assess the federal wetlands, not the state wetlands. Michael?
Yes, our town zone law governs, regulatory governance over federal wetlands, something identified by zoning and anything of that sort. DEC wetlands are strictly province of DEC regulation.
Okay, so what is the local code's federal wetland requirement check zone?
There's a 100-foot buffer around those wetlands. It's chapter 120 in our zoning law, and I think if you read that, it'll tell you exactly what's prohibited within a buffer, what's allowed under permit. And that'll probably give you the guidance that you need to know.
Got it. Is there just,
Yeah, well, stay away from the wetland.
Yeah. If you're within 100 feet of the edge of the wetland as it's delineated, then that's within a wetland buffer. You're gonna need a wetland permit submitted as well. Or you can make sure that you're 100 feet out. It's a little tricky, so here, I measured it using a ruler on a computer screen. So, I need you to do that and tell me what the distance is officially.
I can do that right now.
You've got one right there, and then you also have one up here. Interesting part about this one, and it can be up for discussion, is you are definitely within 100 feet of it where you're proposing to put the road in. So you're definitely looking at disturbance within 100 feet of this federal wetland. It is across the road, we can have a discussion about it, but you are within 100 feet, so technically, you'd have to get that delineated, and that would be a wetland disturbance in the area within 100 feet of the edge of this one.
so I have to delineate the other side of the road?
Theoretically, legally?
Do I have to get, I have to get neighbors' approval to delineate their wetlands on their property?
Well, that's where we may have to have a discussion about it.
Okay.
And again, there's a road between this property and that, and I understand that, but I think it's something the board can discuss, and if we're not sure, then we go to the zoning administrator for some clarification on what he thinks is necessary. I'm just telling you what the laws, we don't make the laws, we just have to let you know what they are to make sure that when you come in for a proposal, you're meeting all the code requirements so that you can move the project forward, and that's just what the code requires. You had mentioned the driveway connection, and, I'll leave it up to the planning board, but I had noted that we may want to discuss the rationale of, putting the driveway in here versus the connection over here, and that directly ties into another comment I had, in that this is a pretty steep slope. By my calculation, I believe we're looking at maybe 40% slope for the first 80 feet from the road in. The town
What was
code...
your assumption on the topography?
What's that?
What was your assumption on the topography?
I didn't use this, I used other topography information. Topo maps.
Google Earth.
No, I did not use Google Earth. I don't use Google Earth to come here and have a conversation. I looked at just parcel access and I used topo maps. So it was a rough measurement. I believe within the first 80 feet, you got about 40% grade. The town code has very specific requirements for what can be done in terms of material that can be at the edge of the road for the apron. The town planning board may want to talk with the planning board engineering consultant on this one because it goes beyond my pay grade. As well as the highway department, I do believe you need a negative grade from the road in on the driveway. I don't think that's being shown here. I think the grade is actually coming straight down the hill to Acrohook Road, so we're looking at a negative grade, which I think would be tricky. Again, that's an engineering discussion that goes beyond me. But the town code does state, and it's a little bit of a conflict, it says to the extent practicable, all driveway grades shall be restricted to a maximum of 15%. And I think you're way over 15. So that's something that needs to be looked at, something, again, the planning board may request or wish to request the town planning board engineer.
I would ask that, I will give our calculations of what that grade will be. We will engineer it, and I'll provide the pitch. Being there on site and biking around Rhinebeck, I've been here, I lived here for 3 years, it's not 40%. So I can't get on bike up 20%. So it's closer, it's closer to that 15 and a little higher.
I calculated a 32-foot rise over 80 feet, which comes out to about 40%. So, again, I did it based on limited topography. So that's something to take a look at when you provide that information. If we do have an issue there as it relates to the code, we can have the engineer look at it.
It's not uncommon for us to refer applications like this to our engineering consultants. So, we'll be happy to receive your engineering calculations, but may very well choose to pass them on for review.
Absolutely. Before we go down that path, is this driveway position a possibility? If I can, because if I go and prove that it's 15%, am I going to run into, well, you can't have your driveway there?
Well, that's my next comment. This is for discussion between you and the planning board. You know, as you mentioned, the cul-de-sac does exist. It was put in with the intent, you know, to be connected to the properties. So that is a comment that I had in my notes, is that should be discussed. Like, you gave the rationale for this, but this was here, and I think that is something we should have a discussion about. Let's go over to other real quickly. I did notice that the proposal is to run the electrical service onto the adjacent neighboring property. From what I read on the plans, that was kind of unique, so I think we need some clarification on that. I don't know if that means you're going to need approval from them, or if you need something from Central Hudson stating that, but I've never seen a connection go onto the neighboring property on a proposal like this. So I don't know if you can explain that a little further or give us something in writing that helps settle that.
So the way it works is the power company go out and they'll look at the thing that makes the most sense. If it's that pole, then they will give us an easement drawing, right? And then I have to get the owner of that property to sign an easement drawing, and then I can do an overhead line. So I know we thought that it kind of made the most sense because, you know, but totally open. I mean, for me, like it's Central Hudson that I feel like is going to have like a weight to the decision.
If you have something in writing that says that that's all good, I think that's fine. One thing we've talked about a lot here is the planning board cannot require an adjacent property owner to do anything, and this seems to me to be an easement that's required. In order to put it in the way you have it on the plans,
Yeah.
you're going to need that easement, which means we're going to need to see that easement in agreement before this can be approved. Otherwise, if we were to approve this and that easement didn't come back, you'd have to come back before the planning board again, potentially to change your routing walls. This needs to show what you're proposing to do.
Understood. If, may I show on the plan an alternate location in case there's some issue with the neighbor unforeseen? That alternate location would, again, represent more cost to my client, but if it's approved, right, then we can just say, okay, the alternate location, if easement isn't approved by the client, by my neighbor, because I really don't have any control whether my neighbor does, right? So I guess the question is that okay, or should I just move it now?
I think you talk to the neighbor.
Yeah, I think I'm just raising it now because we need to make sure all these things are kind of, you know, you have to have all your I's dotted, your T's crossed. You'll get copies of my comments.
Of course.
But when we're talking about something that requires, in order for this to be done as it's shown on the plans, you need to get that agreement from the neighbor or something from Central Hudson, I don't know, that states that that's the way it's going to go. Something that shows the planning board that that is acceptable and that's going to happen. Or maybe the alternative option to suffice. Again, this is kind of a unique one, so you know, kind of give us your thoughts on that for the next discussion and kind of see where we go. But again, the planning board can't force, you know, an adjacent neighborhood to do anything on a proposal like this.
I think it's unique because my primary electric service is coming up that really long driveway, right?
Yeah.
So I have 13 volts at 13.
No, I get it.
Right.
But we need the documentation just to show that that's, you know, that's going to happen, or there's an alternative there that, you know, wouldn't require approvals from the neighbor. And then, you know, let's get my last one, because it's related to county health. And I don't have 2 minutes. Those are my comments.
All right, let me take the first topic up, which was that of archaeology. And I believe we had this conversation in the pre-conference meeting.
We did.
You raised the question then, and we talked specifically about the fact that this is considered one of the most historic areas in the town.
Understood.
I believe that we pointed out that the term Mansa-Kenning itself is used in one of the earliest deeds related to the town of Rhinebeck. I think we also discussed the fact that the matter that we required it on the neighbor for the very reasons that I've just explained.
Yes.
And then despite the fact that you have a separate parcel,
Yes.
I think we talked about the fact that when the Native Americans were on this property, there weren't any parcel lots. And so the fact that you have a separate lot does not mitigate the necessity for you doing archaeology. The fact that it wasn't found on the neighbor does not mean that it could not be found here. And so I believe other planning board members will agree with me that this is an extraordinarily sensitive area and that we would be asking for phase 1A and D archaeology.
Understood. And to be clear, you're right, we did speak about all of those things. My notes show that we were going to ask the opinion of the historian, and so that's what I was going to hold.
We're going to ask the opinion of the archaeological member of
Thank you.
APAC, who is not the historian,
I apologize.
but a professional archaeologist. I did speak to her.
Yes.
I asked if you had been in touch with her. She said you had not.
Okay.
So our advice to you at the pre-conference meeting was to reach out to expedite your process.
Misunderstanding. I thought that was and the only reason why we haven't started yet is without that determination, I didn't want to pull the trigger on 5K. So just, it's done. Consider it done.
I can
Understood.
almost with certainty, based on prior applications and our decision to require it on the adjacent property for the reasons that I previously stated, that it will be her determination that it must be done here as well. You certainly can contact her yourself, we can provide you with that information, but I think you can expect that that's the answer you'll get.
Thank you.
Now, other planning board members, comments?
I think one thing that, what Jim was talking about, I think we need to sit down with the town of Rhinebeck highway superintendent about getting an accurate road, because you're obviously going to need a cut permit from him.
Yes.
And given some of the topographical challenges that Jim mentioned,
Yes.
we may have some very specific engineering requirements that you're going to have to incorporate into your driveway design there before I can feel comfortable allowing you to get on the accurate road.
Understood.
Is the cul-de-sac driveway in currently?
Partially.
Partially?
Partially. So, yeah, exactly. Whoever just did, that's about where it ends, right there.
And is it being used by anyone?
My understanding that the neighbors south of us had an alternate entrance. Apologize for not knowing that for sure. The building here isn't there yet. It's an approved location from the subdivision. So it is our assumption that that will be activated when that house comes online, if it does. But right now, basically the whole turnaround section of it is completely undeveloped. Like basically, like Jim had pointed here, everything from basically, the corner of the property line down. And if you come in, you can go straight to one neighbor's house that's like down here.
And there must be on the deed some information about the ability to use that driveway?
Yes.
So that would be, it looks considerably less expensive than putting in a separate driveway.
Understood. Understood.
And there was deed and maintenance information included in the application stating who has to pay for it, how to maintain it, and how all that stuff works.
Yeah.
So I did take a quick look at that, and it is in there, and it's already on the records and how that works.
And to reinforce a previous point, I think I don't want to throw our neighbor below us under the bus in any way, because we do have a public hearing coming up, hopefully. I think that how do I put this? Perhaps some of the practices and the actualities of that person's property has thrown water onto our client's property. And if you go on site, you might find a big 6-inch pipe that's directing a bunch of water under my client's property. So what I think is happening is this wetland that wasn't considered when the subdivision happened has been developing. Now, I went through and I took 100 pictures of plants using my AI app. Picture this. Did not find anything wetland related. Rush. etc. That said, it doesn't look like a wetland, right? There's like dead leaves under it. It looks like what I would call like a seasonal stream that I think is being developed by the stormwater practices of our neighbor. That said, the driveway location coming in from where the subdivision and the deed wants it to be will cross over that water. There's no question about it. Seasonally, right? Even where I have it shown, it changes. So that is, and I'm assuming there'll be a site visit. Anyone can see what's happening there. I'll show you the pipe spot. But I think what we're dealing with here is, look, there's no, this is like not turtles, right? There's no phragmite growing out of it. This is not the obvious looking wetland. I can actually take some pictures and send it over to the board if they see here. But I say that just because the Ackerhook Hook entrance is connected to that. So I feel like I'm in like a catch-22, right? Like, okay, don't touch the wetland, but don't put the driveway over there. So how do I get into the site? I guess that's what I'm trying to communicate.
Well, that will be a challenge.
Well, you could take the driveway anywhere off your frontage, right? Off the parcel frontage. It doesn't have to be, I'm just saying, it doesn't have to be in the wetland itself, so theoretically it could be just about anywhere in here, unless there's something in that document I read that says it has to come off the cul-de-sac part of the road. There's nothing saying you can't.
You should see the street.
No, I'm not, I haven't been out there, I'm not saying I know, I'm just saying, it was there for a reason, whatever, we can talk about that.
Okay.
We'll be sure, all I'm saying is, even if it was in the wetland buffer, stuff that we do sometimes are trade-offs, and that just might be something worth discussing if there's a trade-off. It's less overall disturbance and things like that, might be a trade-off we're looking at when it comes to something like the wetland buffer. Now, if you're talking about going in the wetland, that's a different discussion, that's a different permit.
And that's what I've observed. I've observed different, I don't know what's going on the site next to us, but I've observed water up to here, and I've observed water almost going down.
Okay, well, I think that, we're not going to resolve all of these details.
I apologize, I know people.
No, that's perfectly fine, and if you believe that there is something going on this property that you're concerned about, that is not the purview of the planning board.
Of course.
That is, that if you believe there's a violation, then you need to deal with that as a violation and not a planning board issue.
I don't believe it a violation, I view it a condition that's causing some wetlands.
Well, that perhaps will be observed by the people who are assigned to make the site visit. So let me turn back to my other planning board members to see if any of them have other questions or concerns they'd like to raise at this time before we go to the procedural resolution. Chair, do you have something?
We need a site visit.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, site visit, I support that.
Okay. Is there anything else before we ask Jim to go? Is that anything else you would like to add in closing?
No, and the site visit anytime, just let me know.
Well, we're gonna give you a time tonight and a date for the next for the public hearing, and we'll assign people and you can make those arrangements. Jim?
Okay.
Yep.
For the board's consideration tonight, a draft procedure resolution for the application by Darren Prince and Kelly Swiss for site plan approval in accordance with chapter 125 for construction of house, installation of covered terrace and in-ground pool of the fence on Ackerhook Road within the RC5. Accepting the application, supporting documents is adequate for further review. Classifying the proposed action as type 2 under seeker. We will schedule the public hearing for December 4th. We will send this off to the CAB for review. We will send this to HAPAC for review. We will send it to Dutchess County Planning for the site plan. And we need at least 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
Sharon? Who'd like to go, Sharon?
I'll go.
Greg? Okay, Sharon and Greg will be in touch with you and schedule a mutually appropriate time to make a site visit.
Great, thank you so much.
And do you need the contact information for our consultant archaeologist? Or are you going to go
Yes,
ahead?
I'll go ahead and do it anyways, but I'd like to give her a call just to check in if there's any, I'm going to give her our method that we're going to do, and I just want to make sure that it's acceptable. So
I will make sure that Gretchen has her contact information and can provide that.
thank you so much.
Okay. That concludes the new application. Yes. Oh, could I have a motion to accept the procedural resolution?
So moved.
Second, Michael, second. Edna, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, thank you. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, everybody.
Moving into the public hearing portion of this evening's meeting. First up is Thomas Babinski, 54 Cedar Heights Road, site plan special permit and wetlands permit for an accessory dwelling on Kitty King.
Yes, hello. Thank you for having us here again. Ever since we came here the last time, my notes say that we needed a conservation advisory, a letter, and the Department of Health, and we performed this site visit and referral. So ever since, and I don't know if I should go into the description of the project before.
First thing up is for you to present to us any new information that you
Any new
want.
information, okay. So as far as conservation advisory, we met a very kind gentleman, I forgot his name, I apologize. And he gave us a positive review, I don't know, I don't have a copy of a letter. Okay.
Two members from the planning board.
And yes, and so.
I'll go in a minute to the report from the planning board site visit.
Okay, and the other question was the Department of Health. We received a note, and according to our engineer, Rich Carney, David, who is the representative of the Department of Health, communicated with Melody, and I am not sure who Melody. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, right in front of you.
So, and he said that if nothing comes up during this meeting, that he's ready to approve the plan. And the next part, and I do apologize for not remembering your name, we performed the site visit, and we looked at a couple of trees that were under question.
I'll ask our members to present their report.
Okay, and so that's basically the short review.
Jim, do you have additional comments?
Nothing new, I just know that there was a change, we asked for some details on topography and other things, and so there's a slight change in terms of how I guess this is going to be graded, for lack of a better term, the walls remaining the same. And then we did get some of the detail on the change of grading, and why the trees need to be removed. They essentially need to be removed because they're in close proximity to the house and the SDS related location, so that was the rationale for taking out the two bigger trees. Otherwise, I don't have any additional comments from them.
Okay, who conducted the site visit?
Lisa. One thing I'll note on the one tree on the front right corner, Jim, if you could kind of point it out, that, front, I guess left top. Well, no, you're in the right spot. The big tree, the big oak, the 30+ inch oak. That is, we did observe it, and I know pictures, that is almost split about halfway down, and that chunk has fallen off. It's not a tree in good health and definitely would not make it through any construction. There is one cherry behind it that is referenced, which would be leaning, it's already leaning kind of like this. Wouldn't be leaning directly over the house, it's already got quite a lean to it. And then there is one in the back, it's, I guess, bottom right, where that's actually some setback. And that is a large oak in really good health, and they're doing everything they can to obviously stay away from that as much as possible. During the process, they did ask to move the house back a little bit, and that made it even closer to the tree. But I believe we've gone back and forth on that. One thing that was, I think, challenging about the property, and I believe George mentioned it in his note too, is we walked quite a bit of the property, and there's literally nowhere else to put it due to other wetlands and other reasons for approval of septic alone. So even though it's this quite a big property, they are like stuck to this one little corner, which was not the original place they wanted it, but where we are today. There is an existing farm road that is going to the current area that the house is going to be, where they're looking to keep that style of a farm road, not, just kind of grass and maybe some gravel eventually, but to keep that style of a farm road to this accessory dwelling. I think the only challenge we have, and is that it is close to neighbors, and I think that's the only really. But again, we're limited of where they can put it overall. Other than those are all my notes, just in general. But it was a great site visit. We went through a lot, and I think George's note also has very similar findings. If you want to jump into that next part.
Well, the only thing that George added to this, and relative to what you were saying, is that sensitivity is urged in choosing in the arrangement of plans for privacy screening because of the close proximity of the neighbors. So is that something you talked about in the field, and have you made any adjustments to the screening?
Yes, so the client is very eager to have his property screened just because their own privacy. So they're planning on planting the trees along the property line.
But this application at this time does not denote what will be planted, or it does?
Oh, the specific plans? No,
Well,
just
what your
told them-
screening plan would be.
Yeah, so we gave a sample of, if you look down on the photo, this is a representation of what it would look like, but the specific plants, we think evergreens, but it could be a different types of evergreens. There are some that are 8 feet wide, and then they grow up to 16 feet tall, and they can be planted as that at 12 feet tall right away. And the objective is to plant them in staggers so that it's well screened for both of them, because our client also would like privacy, and they have a beautiful property, and they've been taking care of it since they bought it, and they're here full time.
And is what you just described about the visual intent, the aesthetic intent of the screening, is that denoted anywhere on the plan? Is there a narrative that describes that, or?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
We could add it on a staff level, but definitely it was going to go within our client's property and go along so that there's no interference.
I think it would be helpful to have
It does.
some description of it.
We love that.
The species and dementia is native, and
I'm not asking you to give me a detailed planting plan, but I would like something added to this before signature, so that we have it documented that it's your intent, to do just exactly what you said. Put in some, mature evergreen trees that will provide the screening that apparently both parties want.
correct. And so today I was also, prior to our meeting, I was talking to our landscaper who we've worked with in several projects, and he was explaining about the giant green tree, he called it. I don't know if that's the scientific name, but that's what he called it. And it has an 8-foot canopy, and he could plant it at 12 feet, and then it would grow about 2 to 3 feet a year, so it reached 16 feet in height. And they would be staggered so that the canopies would just screen both neighbors, in essence.
Or perhaps he would provide you with that.
The description and
Okay.
yes, and we could provide the scientific name for it, and not just giant.
The biggest tree is, I think it's what it's called.
Sure, you're done?
I'm complete.
Okay, anyone else?
I think part of the concern was the light coming from within the house and the shining through the windows. And that would really require screening with a lot of density, not just a lot of branches that grow very rapidly, but something that grows dense enough that it prevents, when you turn the bathroom light on at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's going to light things up. What is the side yard setback with the neighbors?
The requires 37.5 feet, but we're like 47.5 from the setback. So we're like beyond. So this is from this sight line.
Yeah.
37 is here. So if you
over 90.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
it's double
elevation
that.
be much higher.
Yes.
Yes.
Their view line from their property is almost over the top of our house.
Right, right.
Very close,
Yeah.
within 4 feet.
Okay.
Because,
And this planting would take place up?
In the middle, between the two, so if it goes up 10 feet, it's blocked it completely.
Yeah, so it is, if you picture, this is 350 here, and we planted trees stagger, and again, this goes down, but if this elevation is at about 360 at eye level, these trees will be at 366. So there is, because this line here is 350, and this is here, but then it just slightly goes down.
So it has to be probably over 12 feet.
Right.
And is there any issue with headlights, vehicles?
No, because this is a guest house that'll be used mostly for his parents when they come, which is, you know how parents are, they show up occasionally. There's no kids yet. When grandkids come, that'll be different.
Yeah, no, but so the reality is that we're proposing 3 lights for the outside. And one is hanging down and it's a dome light, and the other one is a sconce next to the door. But there is a porch, so, it wouldn't be lighting the
It's
entire
100%
side.
cut off.
Exactly.
Right. This is the porch,
Right.
which is aiming this way.
Right.
They're here, so you should not see it.
Right.
Correct on headlights, it's definitely, everything's sloped up. And this is the existing driveway, kind of down almost,
Okay.
in this like little building.
All right.
To get better. So there would not be a scenario unless, the only scenario is if they kind of reverse the car around and pointed it uphill, potentially, but other than that.
Yeah, and this would be more like gators
Nice.
type of thing. It's not like not gonna bring their full vehicle.
So I believe the house is kind of sunken into the point, which is one of the reasons for the 5-foot wall.
Okay.
So if you can imagine, like, that's how much slope you start to see there.
And that was the other thing, is the retaining wall, and is that going to be a dry stone wall?
Most likely we'll do a concrete with a veneer because we want it to stay there. The dry stone I love, but some of them, we work on houses that are 200 or 300 years old, they worked. But this being new construction, we thought about a concrete center with the stone veneers on it, just to sustain it.
So-
it would not move.
Yeah, and so it depends, right? Because if you move this, I'm sorry, the last time you were moving it, I thought I was.
Who's running the show?
So if you go here, like these would be veneer, but our objective with the photo that we showed is that then it gradually falls within the hill, and it has like natural stone,
It'll
and
follow
some
the grade.
shrubs, and then to make it more appealing. Oh, our clients, and I'm gonna stand by us, but they're very nice people, and they would love to make it feel like, it's been there for a while.
Yeah,
So,
that's the objective.
so it will be
Okay, and
partially veneer.
dry stone wouldn't do that?
So it would be
Well, dry-
partially veneer closest to the house because we are extending the wall behind the house.
Uh-huh.
But then it would dry, like the photo depicted at the bottom.
Actually, let me interrupt. Craig, you may be right. Once I'm out of the house, I can dry stone. I would never do it near a house that wants to stay dry.
Right.
The moisture will go right through. I build hundreds, many hundred homes all over the
So
country.
short answer, yes. As we come out of the house, it would
I
be
can do
looking
that.
more like
But
that.
for the house, I want to keep it as dry as possible.
For the actual foundation of the house?
Yes.
But once we go past, dry stone is actually will be preferred because it's a very stable property. I didn't see a lot of movement. I didn't see outcrops. The soil was great. We do have stone about 5 feet down, or we have shale. So it's stable. So we can definitely do a beautiful, more organic approach. It's going to be pretty much following the grid.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other comments or questions from planning board members? Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to comment on this application? All right, hearing none, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Public hearing is closed. Chairman, do you have a draft procedural resolution? Approval, I'm sorry.
So for the board's consideration tonight, a draft approval resolution for site plan, special use permit, and wetlands permit for Thomas Babinski for site plan approval, special use permit 120, chapter 125 and chapter 120, respectively for construction of an accessory dwelling at 54 Cedar Heights Road in the RC5, reaffirming the actions type 2 under secret for the coordinated environmental quality reviews precluded. Based upon the submitted information, including reports from planning board members on the site visit, finding the proposed work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of chapter 125. With respect to the application for the wetlands permit, find the proposed work and intended use is consistent with the general standards for wetlands permits as set forth in chapter 125, and grant the requested wetland permit conditioned upon site plan approval and special use permit. With respect to the application for special use permit, finding the proposed and intended use is consistent with the general standards for special use permits set forth in chapter 125, and granting the requested special use permit conditioned on site plan approval. And with respect to the application for site plan approval, finding the proposed work and intended use is consistent with Town Code Chapter 125, Section 12575, and approve the application by right architects dated September 6, 2023, and authorize the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above-cited site plan upon the applicant's satisfaction of the below three conditions. However, I think based on the discussion earlier, I'd like to add another one in there that we will get provided details on the screening proposal between the accessory dwelling and the neighbor prior to that stamp and signature. So I'd like to add that in.
Yeah,
if
it's
that's
added to the final submittal. We'll just look at that when it comes in and make sure it's there.
On the plan, on the plan that needs the signature, then I should just
Yeah,
add
it'll be
a
a condition
paragraph.
of approval that it be on that final plan.
Gotcha, okay,
So we'll add that in.
perfect. We'll add that right away.
Thanks, Sean. Second?
Second.
I'll pull the board. Sharon? Aye. Michael?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Edna? Aye. Craig?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
The second public hearing this evening is Jeffrey Valenti, 6830 Route 9, site plan review for a change in use to a rental house.
Christina Valenti with Lang Engineering, since we're on the project. We're taking the existing pet country building on number 9 and converting it to an oral surgery office and for the potential to have 2 tenants, which would either be medical office or retail, in addition to the oral surgeon's office. We're showing additional parking as required by the code. We're showing 44 spaces, which is based upon the use that if it's a medical office plus the oral surgery office, based on the gross floor area calculation, you would need 44 spaces. If there's a retail component in addition to the medical office, you would need 36 or 38 spaces. So we're showing basically the worst case scenario. The existing septic system, as we come to find out from the health department with Mr. David Pearson, the septic system that's there existing was never certified to. It's also based upon a smaller flow, and we're proposing to replace that septic system. We did talk to Mr. Pearson about the flow for the oral surgery office. We were able to get a lower flow rate than required by the health department because the existing well water would not be used for oral surgery procedures. There would be saline that would be brought in for the procedures. So water usage for the dental office would be limited to hand washing, toilets, sinks, things like that. So we did negotiate the rate down, which allowed us to reduce the footprint. We factored in potential tenant occupancy for the remaining, he would be occupying about 3,000 square feet. The remaining 5,000 to 6,000 square feet would be the other tenant. We did factor in employee counts associated with that, with our system. And we were able to bring the system from the back area to the front completely with the expansion area. We were able to reduce the disturbance limits as a result of being able to shift the expansion area to the front. We're showing additional landscaping to screen as part of the application meeting that was had. We did look into considering porous pavement, but our concern is that porous pavement is an infiltration-based practice, and there's a separation requirement to the septic system to infiltration-based practices of 50 feet, which we would not have if it's located on top of the underground septic system that would be located in the parking area. So currently, we're not proposing any porous pavement to be used on the site. We are keeping the access driveway that loops around because we were concerned about emergency access, allow for fire truck circulation. There is also discussion with the new configuration that there would be a door potentially in the back that would allow for patients to be picked up after a medical procedure so that they're not walking out and going to vehicles in the parking area just so that they can pick them up and take them out. We add, as I noted, we added landscaping to comply with the town's ordinance. And there was a request to incorporate meadow mix into the wetland area that we're disturbing to put the plantings in, which we have incorporated as well. And then the new sign is going to be proposed to replace the existing sign. We provided details for the sign demonstrating compliance with the town's height requirements and square footage requirements of the sign itself. And then there's an existing well that is proposed to be reused, which we provided protection around the well to prohibit snow plowing if they're going to plow snow in the area from affecting the well itself.
Okay, so in my notes, I did provide a lot of updates. A lot of these were kind of just related to, the fact that you responded to a lot of the comments I had made, and a bunch of those were related to the pre-con meeting. I don't know that I need to go through those. But I do want to mention, though, that the signage is going to require a permit from the zoning administrator. It's going to require a review from the zoning administrator for consistency with the code. So we'll have to submit that to the zoning administrator, and he will bring it back. I know you noted in your submission that you would provide, I didn't actually see that sheet showing the sign itself in the package, but I know it was in the letter you submitted.
Yeah,
so maybe it just didn't.
It was on the it should have been on the detail sheet.
Was it? Okay, I'll go back and look. It still has to go to the zoning administrator for review, and then he'll submit it to the planning board.
Yeah, when we put the sign in, we saw that it didn't comply with the existing sign doesn't comply with the setbacks that were set forth. I think requires a 20-foot setback for monument signs, and the existing sign is actually closer to the property line, so we're proposing to shift that back so it complies.
It's also probably going to be a lot smaller. I'll have to look again
Yes.
in there. The code is pretty tight when it comes to commercial signage. So you have reached out to DOT, reached out to County Health, but we don't have approvals from either of those agencies yet, is that right?
Correct. We reached out, they acknowledged, the DOT acknowledged receipt. They were reviewing it, their traffic group was reviewing it.
I just had a comment, and I said in my previous notes, I don't do ADA compliance reviews, but it just seemed weird to me. I think they're existing with the handicap spaces here. It just seemed kind of odd to me that they are about as far away from the door for this proposal we're talking about as they can get. And even if someone else were to come in here, it just seems like they'd make more sense just kind of being in the middle. I understand that would probably require cutting up the existing sidewalk and redoing that. I'm not saying you have to do that, I'm just bringing it up as a comment. It just seems kind of awkward being over here with the door for what we're talking about. I think it is over here, right? The office is on the side. I talked about the sign. The planning board may want to talk about the area of disturbance. We had talked previously about a phase 1A and 1B. The applicant stated that it was previously disturbed and thinking that one is needed. So we may want to have a discussion about that. But we have not had one provided. We talked about pervious paving. We do applaud you for putting in the wet tolerant plants. I think that's great in addition to the wetland area there and where the water's going to go off the site. And then we did receive a comment letter from the county. I'm going to bring that up just to go through it quickly. They did do a review of the proposal, and I don't know if you've seen this yet. I think you got forwarded.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. They did talk about parking, thinking that there were too many spaces. They talked about the wraparound driveway and whether or not it was needed. And then again, the street frontage and the wetland areas. I didn't know if you had any thoughts or comments on that. You want to make tonight to the board on comments that they made.
So with regards to the parking, we are proposing the most intensive use, given that we don't know what the other tenant is. It could be a medical office, which under your code, medical office, dental office, it all has the same parking requirement. So that's how we're parking the site. If it turns into being like a retail space, which has a less intensive parking use, we could always land bank the parking spaces. I think there would be 6 less parking spaces that would be required based upon the dental office and like a retail space. With regards to the wraparound driveway, as noted, it would be for emergency vehicle access, have full circulation around the building, and then also the potential for patients to be picked up in the back away, not have to cross across the parking lot to go to vehicles. With regards to like the street frontage, I know your code requires 1 shade tree or evergreen, so we proposed evergreens, but if there's a preference for shade trees, I think we can plant the shade tree instead in lieu of the eastern white pine and the other evergreen that we're proposing. And I did talk to my landscape architect, because our concern about planting in the wetlands is that we are disturbing 0.02 acres of a federal wetland. The balance of it is 0.12. So over a tenth of an acre, we would require a permit from the Army Corps, which we do not want to do if we're doing ground disturbance. So they had said that if it is preferable to plant like a seed mix, that the grass could be mowed down pretty tight, and then they could do a drill seeding option, which would result in less disturbance, and we would be under the 0.1 acre threshold. And then we could do plant the same type of meadow mix to enhance the wetland that is there now.
Would you be willing to consider banking parking for the future when that future tenant comes in and not pave it all up front? That's already on the plan, but it would be parking reserve essentially, that, we wouldn't necessarily see the parking actually paid until, you had a tenant come in. Would that be something that we would consider?
That's something we probably do with the ones in the back, you wouldn't do?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we bank with the parking spots, look at the back of the building.
So you want to consider that for these? You'd be willing to consider that for these spaces here?
Yeah, 6, I think the most would be 6.
I think there's 9 of them, I think.
So I don't know if that's something the board would want to consider or not in terms of reducing potential impervious for now until they're needed, but let's bring that up as an option. We do that sometimes. We're not sure.
What does that mean in the future when they want that?
So it would be approved, but, say the applicant went in right now and started doing work, in a month or two or whatever, they wouldn't actually pay some number of spaces right now until another tenant came in and they knew that they needed the total of, say, 44, if we agree that 44
Would
is
they
that
come
number.
back for a release of that?
No, it would be approved. It would just be marked as in reserve, paid when needed, something to that effect. Paid when if needed.
Are you any closer to sort of narrowing down the type of uses you want in the space that you're not using?
So it was, part of it was like the Department of Health with water usage for it too, what we could do. It seems like probably, we haven't got to final approval yet, but probably be able to do all medical, but just in case they end up doing lower than all of our calculations, having the retail back up. But ideally, a lot of buildings want to do everything, want to be a medical office building, but then it's with the septic and the water, made it so it would be a little bit more conservative, having that as like a backup plan potentially. But the thought, the goal for it when I initially saw it was having like a medical office building, all medical providers.
And the space you showed here, because it didn't show the whole building, is it about a third of the space that exists?
That's just over the 3,000 square feet, that's right.
Is that a third of the overall building?
Yeah, the building's 9,100 square feet.
9,100?
9,100 square feet.
It's not showing the whole.
Right.
This is about, yes, so this is about a third of the back of the building, just something like that. Oh, sorry, yes, those are my comments.
So who conducted the site visit?
Chairman.
Okay, would you like to make your report?
This was an interesting site visit. I got the distinct impression the gentleman who was out there with us didn't know he was going to have to be out there with us. A couple of days before the site visit, I got an email. I'm not sure if it was from you or who I got it from, asking if anyone representing the owners or the engineers or anything had to be out there when we were out there with us. And of course, I said yes. I mean, we're going out there to learn what's going on with this property. And then 2 days later, I got another email, do you need to get into the building? And I said, yes, I need to get into the building, obviously.
Yeah, but they indicated that they were coming at 10 o'clock. And we were there at 10 o'clock, said till 11 o'clock, and nobody came.
I know, that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, it was a very interesting site visit, we didn't get into
We
the
were
building.
there at 10 o'clock, and the owner was there too. I was there, and the owner was there. So anybody in the building got there at 11 o'clock, I said, well, then I come.
Well, no one had a key to get us into the building.
You know.
All right,
That's what happened.
I'd like to listen to the site report.
And a great deal of information we received tonight, which is very helpful, was not available during the site visit, in terms of the plantings, things of other, none of these other things we.
Well, we can do it again. I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, we're there for an hour, I mean, how long are you waiting, you know?
I'm just saying that that information is normally something that we would get, and we often do get. And if we'd had that, then we could show right where on the property this was going to happen, and whatnot, and all that. We didn't see any of that, we weren't able to do any of that. So I don't know how helpful the site visit was. One of the concerns I do have is we all know how wet that area is out there. And doing the septic where it's being placed and then putting parking over it, and I think you're talking about an impervious surface, not a pervious surface over it. I just think we need to talk to Dave Pearson just to make sure he understands the conditions out there. It's very wet. There's a lot of wetlands, there's a lot of groundwater. You know, that the old restaurant, the old Rolling Rock there, had tremendous problems with its septic system underneath the parking. I had friends who lived behind that building, and they had raw sewage running over their property on occasion. So I think we just want to make sure that Dave understands what's going on there and, you know, is aware of it. That's very important. I think a lot of the information we've just received tonight is very, very helpful. I do wish we'd had it there during the site visit, because then we can be more specific about where everything was going and how it might look. So that's what I have to say.
Sharon?
No, I agree with Michael, and I think the letter from the county was very helpful too, with the plantings and parking.
Any board members? Questions of the
I seem to remember reading somewhere that the parking stipulations in the town code are recommended as maximums, not as a required minimum. And it does really seem like there's a lot of parking there for a building that size. And adding more, it does tend to complicate the site plan. Also, as Michael mentions, I'm familiar with how marshy the surrounding area is. And have you done any test pits or?
They were released by the health department,
Okay.
so the site is completely filled. So because there was separation issues with groundwater and finding layers on the property that would be prior approval, so they brought all fill material in and filled it so that the septic system can meet the requirements. So we're meeting all the same requirements, and we're basically putting our proposed system in the footprint of where the existing system is in the fill material, which all burns. We had a 27-minute per inch percolation rate, and then Dave was out there when we did the test pits. He witnessed depth of groundwater, rock, if we hit any of that, so that's all been performed.
Okay. And is it an elevated pump
Yes.
system?
Yes.
Force main?
Yeah, it's an elevated system.
How far is this from the terminus of the village sewer? 'Cause I know it goes as far as Tops.
It's gotta be about a half mile. It goes as far as Cow for Village. As far as I know.
But it used to be the old Grand Union site, so it's
Yeah, so
now
it'd be
Paramount.
close.
No, actually, no, it's not Paramount. I don't know what it is now. They changed it again.
Optum. Yeah, I think they had to extend it when the old Grand Union became Optum.
Yeah.
I looked into that a little bit too, it's really much easier to set up a septic system versus that, but I can't remember the exact system, it was far away, and then the line going to Tops and Paramount, I think is like a pretty small one, they have stipulation where you can't add on to that one even too. So it'll be,
Don't let anybody hook on.
yeah,
The
so
owners-
it wouldn't even be a top
We
secret.
tried for the Everett for years to get into it, and the owners just totally disagreeable about it. And the other problem is, when they put it in, they size the line too small. They only put a 2-inch line in, where it should have been a 4 or 6-inch line, and they should put a zipper on it, because they dig it up about once a month where it's clogged or broken. You probably notice it if you go up that way. You know,
They
it's,
put the small one in, so they
yeah,
don't want
and it's,
anything else.
you know, they have constant trouble with it because they get checked out in the line. I mean, at least once or every 6 weeks they're digging it up. So that's not an option.
Also, how is the stormwater handled in the parking area?
So we're less than an acre, so we're not proposing any stormwater management. However, we are adding green spaces we're, proposing some islands to comply with the town's requirements for landscaping. And, I mean, like I said, we're less than an acre.
Okay,
so-
but the water off of all the pavement,
Correct.
that goes down a drain?
Yeah, I think there's an existing drainage, there's an existing drain manhole that goes out to the wetlands, yes.
Okay.
And building roof leader comes off and goes right into the wetlands water.
Correct, because right now the roof leaders are coming through the septic area, which we have to provide 25-foot separation for the septic to the roof leaders, so the existing roof leaders didn't comply. So we're proposing to reroute it, and then we adjusted plantings based upon comments to provide screening and flow dissipation.
Right, that's why I asked for those, because we've got more water going in there, it'll filter it, it'll help slow it down, so it'll get room. So they're all coming in. The roof leader's coming in about here.
Correct.
Any board members? Heard a couple of things. Tell me if I'm summarizing them right. There's still some concerns about making sure that the health department is on board with all of this and understands what's going on. So I'm hearing a request to revisit Dave Pearson. That's one thing I thought I heard. The other thing that I thought I heard is the desirability of looking at some way to sort of reduce the initial paving over and creating additional spaces at this time until there's some justification for needing it in the future. And I think this is being driven by the fact that it's very difficult for us to understand what the need is when you can't tell us who the tenant, what type of tenant it's going to be. So I think that's creating a little bit of an uneasiness about how much is really needed. So I would be in favor of continuing the public hearing, to go back to the health department and to give you some time to consider all of the things we've discussed about the parking, to see what sort of concessions you might make or be willing to make in terms of banking some of these going forward and considering that. Is there other planning board members, does that summarize what I'm hearing, or are you in disagreement with that?
If I might just add, I think, there's an opportunity here to enhance the walkability, bikeability of our retail spaces in Rhinebeck and move away from this paradigm that's very car-centric and asphalt pavement. It's kind of out of character with, where this town has always been, even though this has been there for a very long time. I think it really welcomes some forward thinking. So more modest accommodations for parking is a step in the right direction.
So if it is a fully medical building, this is the minimum number of spaces that I need for the building, is that correct? Okay. So if it's all medical building, which is my idea for it, that's the minimum by state that I would need to have for it. I'd be happy to bank them if I don't need the tenant or do retail, but if it's all medical, which is the ideal, we have the tenants for that, that's a minimum by the state. I don't think it's that many parking spots
But
either.
banking that and...
Yeah, I don't think I need that many parking spots either, but just the requirement by...
Banking it and ensuring that you come back to us when you can name the tenants and you can share with us exactly what the businesses that will be.
Fine with that.
His preference is to have it all medical.
I understand,
That's a
but he may not be able to get that.
But, it's the market, is there demand for medical versus something else?
Absolutely.
His first option, his first preference would be medical, correct?
Correct.
But if I'm understanding correctly, if it were medical and it were retail, then he wouldn't be driven to the number of parking spaces that are being proposed.
And I could do 6 less, and I'd be happy to bank in the bank,
I
yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, leading us to the conversation about banking some at this point until you have a greater idea. At least that's what I think I'm hearing.
I think the one thing that I think you guys all have to realize, you have 6,000 roughly square feet there, and you don't know what you're going to do with it. And it's very hard for a planning board to just go ahead and approve maximums on anything, not knowing what that square footage is going to be used for. And I understand why you don't, but it still puts us in a very awkward position.
I mean, 2/3, as you pointed out, 2/3 of the square footage is a mystery at this point. And that's not an insignificant number.
One thing I wanted to note for the record that I did forget to mention, you heard it earlier, is that space, you will have to come back in, the applicant will have to come back in for planning board review and approval for that space when, that becomes, when you know what the use is, or if you come in and you want to use a fraction of that space. As you saw earlier tonight, we had a similar situation. But with that one, we were kind of told this is going to be an office type use. Again, we had the discussion about how it was medical, small medical versus office and intensity use. But this one will have to come back in under those same types of situations. That when you know who that tenant is, we'll have to go back through the site plan review again.
All right, is there someone wishing to make a motion to continue the public hearing?
So moved.
It would be to when, Richard?
December 4th.
December 4th. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Thank you very much. The last public hearing for this evening is Quentin Chu, 30 Hook Road, for site plan review and construction. Oh, okay. Well, let me correct for the record, this public hearing has been closed. This is under old business.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, good evening.
Okay, hello, Peter Sweeney, I'm the architect representing the owners. To quickly restate this, it's been a couple of months. The proposal is for approximately 100 square foot pool house, which is located on the site of what was a previously similar sized building adjacent to a pool similar in the existing location. Nothing has changed since the last few times that I've been here, except that there was a request to get the approval from the county, which I believe you have a record of at this point.
And that was the only thing that was holding it back. So unless anyone has any desire or need to revisit this in any detailed way, I could entertain, Jim could present the draft approval resolution and we can mercifully let you go home.
The draft approval resolution for the board's consideration from Quentin Chu for site plan approval in Town Code Chapter 125 to replace a pool and construct a new pool house at 30 Wood Road, moving RA 10, reaffirming the action is type 2 under seeker, based upon review of submitted information, finding the proposed work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. And with respect to the application for site plan approval, finding the proposed work and intended use consistent with the Town Code Chapter 125, Section 12575, and approve the application inclusive of the materials dated June 26, 2023, and plans by PSA Studios Architecture dated June 26, and authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the site plan upon the applicant's satisfaction of these 3 conditions below. Those are your standard conditions.
So moved.
Second. And I believe you said, Gretchen, public hearing had already been closed.
On September 5th, yes.
Okay, so then I have a motion and a second. Let me pull the board, Craig.
Aye.
Edna? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Sharon? Aye. And I vote aye. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
We have a few other things to wrap up. Looks like I can get you out of here at a reasonable time. You have a time extension request from Catherine Whitman at 16 Post Road.
So the board members, Catherine Whitman is in for replacement of a house that was demolished, and she's asked for a timeline extension for construction of a single-family home and it's the associated site improvements to take us out 6 months from December 20th, 2023 to June 20th, 2024.
Any questions, concerns? I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
John, second. Edna, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have two ZBA referrals. Get through those.
The first ZBA referral is from David LaPlante, 22 Cedar Heights Road. This is an application before the ZBA for a 1,000 square foot addition to increase the size of the garage, which requires an area variance of 128 square feet, because he will be 128 over the 1,500 square foot maximum for roof accessory structures. The garage is also proposed to be within a side yard setback, which is required for the accessory structures, and is requesting a variance of 14 feet 9 inches. Based on the review of the aerial images, it looks like it's going over the existing gravel driveway, so it wouldn't be new disturbance per se. I didn't see any details on the plans. I just want that as a note. We typically put that in there. We, as the planning board, always require site plans to be stamped, signed, dates, that kind of thing. I didn't see that. I don't know if you want to put that back in the note to the ZBA. I'm sure they're well aware of that. I just want to note for the record that it was essentially just a pretty basic submission that was given to us. But other than that, I should say, LaPlante. Other than that, for Mr. LaPlante, I don't know that I found any issues with the proposal, so we would send back the standard response. There are no significant planning or environmental concerns. I recommend that they rely on their own study of the facts.
I move that we do that.
Motion, second, please.
Second, Sean.
Sean, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries.
Is that address, that doesn't sound right.
22 Cedar Heights?
Because he's not Cedar Heights, he's Cedar, whatever that.
Cedar Knoll.
The one over off of Wake's.
All right, so pending.
Well, we can
Well, I just wanted to
adjust.
throw it out there because if it changed it, just so it's on record that.
We will amend the address if needed.
Yeah, I don't remember that name.
Address. I did review the right information, I can tell you.
It is the right information, yes.
I did review the information submitted. Second one is one that we should all know pretty well. This is Eric Fixler, Wurtenberg Road. This is the applicant who came in to put what he's calling an awning over the door of his house at 700 Wurtenberg Road. He's within the 100-foot setback. The house is currently 60 feet in from the road, so anything that he does on the front would be requiring a variance. There was a deck there that was extended 10 feet out. That's been removed. This awning will extend 4 feet into the buffer, so they're looking 6 feet less than what was there before, but it's a 4-foot extension into the front yard buffer. So
We should use their own guidance and whatever we say when we send that motion through, so we should do that.
So do you like to go with the standard one? I put a little bit more in here because the ZBA had been requesting a little bit more information from us in terms of justification when necessary. So I talked about, well, it does protrude 4 feet into the front yard on historic Wurtenberg Road. It is smaller, more appropriate for the front facade than the larger deck that was demolished, and the addition is located behind the existing row of trees. Additionally, the house across the street, which is only about 10 feet from the edge of the road, does have a large front porch extending from the front of the house, so there are similar, it's not apples to apples, similar extensions on the front of houses. And it cover over the entryways, generally consistent. Done? There you go. All right.
All those in favor?
Who was the first?
Sean.
Who was second?
I second.
Oh, did you? I didn't hear you. You're so clappy.
One flag.
One final bit of official business to come before you, and that I'll let Jim explain. There was a minor error in the town board referral for the ODA. Jim?
Yep, so when we did the Alderkill Duncanburg Conservation Subdivision Open Development Area referral, I gave you all the details on it. We went through it, talked about the resolution that was dated June 20th, 2023. And I erroneously carried that date over to say that that was when the plan sheet was dated. It was actually March 6th, 2023. So I carried over the resolution date to the plan sheet date, and so I was notified, correction was notified, and I was notified that this was a typo, so I would like to ask for the board's indulgence to help me with my typo to fix that, just to refer to the proper plan sheet.
I move that we do that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Thank you very
Opposed?
much.
Abstentions? The last little bit of business that I would just share with you is that we received communication from Nicholas Ward Willis, who you may recall is the attorney for Grassmere Farm, Soho House. And they are still in a position of not having received their approvals from DEC, DOH, or DOT. They were advised that DOT and DOH are in the final stages. They are still uncertain as to where DEC is in the review process. They had expected them in August. They don't have them. We're in conversation with them now because they're initially asking for an extension, but we do not believe that they, at this point, can get another extension. So we have to work out the details of whether they come back, and we have to go through approval. We're checking into the specific details. I think it's, yes, it is unfortunate. I don't know that we would have to go through, at the same time that we're verifying what their status is, we'll verify what we must do to conform to the law. I don't know about public hearings. I just don't have the information to be able to share that tonight. But we did try to speak directly with Nick after he sent this, and we haven't been able to be in touch and communicate. So we're working with them to sort of figure that out. I did also ask, because you may recall that was outstanding, that in addition to the permits he mentioned here, they were still working through their agreement with the village regarding village water. And he didn't report on that, so I don't know what the status of that is. But that's where I frequently am asked by people where we are and what's going on. And you may recall that I still not have signed that final approval because we were pending all of these permits coming in. So that's currently as much as we know about that project for your information. So unless anyone else has something to come before us this evening, with no public left, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?